The English word for Simcha, for joy, is happiness. Happiness really comes from the word happens or happenstance or happen to have happened, meaning to say that it just happened, random act, or by random chance, this thing occurred. But Simcha, joy, is not at all that. Joy does not mean something that's just a random act, but it actually has a much deeper meaning and significance. And joy is the subject that I would like to address today to help us understand what really is the Jewish definition of happiness, or using the Hebrew term simcha, which literally means joy. There is a nickname that the Jewish people were called, or Hasidim specifically were called, and they were known as the happy ones, the joyous ones. They were always with a smile, always happy, always dancing. So what really is joy? Does it mean that a person is dancing, smiling, or sprinting, or kind of have this little jump in their step? What really is the concept, the idea of joy when we say that someone is happy? True joy must be something more than just a external expression of how that person is behaving. Wow, an external expression certainly is a reflection of what's going on inside of that person, but to truly understand what the inherent value and why it's so important for a person to be joyous, we need to understand what it really means. On a certain level, a person is constantly looking to climb out of themselves, meaning to say that a person wants to not escape themselves, not to leave themselves, or they're not happy with the way they feel or they look or they sound, and they want to kind of change that. But really what it means is that a person wants to climb on the truest definition, or in the inherent search that a person is looking for, is a person wants to reach above themselves, meaning to say they don't want to be limited by the current constraints that their personality has upon them, and they want to live a more broader, a greater, a more expansive life. So how do we reach that point where we recognize who we are, what we are made up of, and feel the need to expand beyond that and to grow beyond that? There are several definitions that help give us a framework of this concept of being in a state of happiness, of joy, or in a state of pleasure. But when we break down the words, we will actually notice that each stage, each word expresses something different, okay? So let's take, for example, the term pleasure. Now, pleasure oftentimes leads to joy and happiness, but pleasure by itself is not necessarily a joyous thing. Let me explain what that means. When we say that somebody has pleasure, oftentimes it refers to a more intellectual exercise. A person is thinking about something, has a deep concept that they're contemplating about, and when a person understands it, when we get it, when we resonates with us, it brings us a certain amount of pleasure. But that pleasure does not cause the person to get up from their seat and start to dance, for example. It causes the person to be more reflective, more thinking. When a person is in a state of comfort or contentment, that almost brings a person to a degree of pleasure, but it also a person sometimes remains stuck in that space. The person is not breaking out of their current situation. They're within that situation, and within that life that they're living, they have a great amount of pleasure, which is fantastic. It's amazing. And a person should be in that state. However, what we are attempting to discuss today is that a person really should strive to break out of that space, not to remain stuck in that way that they're living. While it could be a pleasurable way to live, but we want to achieve something even more, something greater, something higher, something achievable that will really bring a degree of pleasure that is beyond one's wildest imagination. And that's what we want to reach. And that is what joy really is. So what is joy? Joy allows the person to break free of that situation where they are stuck, they're limited, they're constrained, and it brings us to a degree of expansiveness, to a almost a unlimited space. By nature, we're very specific and very calculated in our behavior and the things that we do. Oftentimes, it's related to our nature or to our environment. We are self-conscious, and therefore we behave in a certain manner. But those manners that we're behaving in is a very calculated and limited way, which is necessary and helpful and good. But that does not lead us to being our best self or our most enhanced self. We're made up of many different parts. We have many different body parts: hands, feet, fingers, torso, and so on and so forth. Eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. We have also many internal organs that we don't necessarily see. There's also many parts. When are we most concerned about these various parts that make up of who we are? It is when they're not working together. When your mind is thinking one thing and your mouth says something else, that's frustrating. We don't like that. When we want to do something and we end up doing something else. When our bodies, or even more deeper, when our emotions are not working in unison, then it leads us to a very discorded way of living, a divided way of living. And that makes us unhappy because we get frustrated, we become anxious, and it only leads us down a negative path. So what we want to do is then to unite all the varying parts within us. And by uniting everything together, when everything works together, we end up being calm, happy, joyous, beyond our wildest imagination. Which is why when a person is happy, what ends up happening? We don't remain sitting on our seat, but we end up getting up and we end up dancing. That is a reflection that we're working together. Our entire body is working in unison. So our dancing is really just an expression of something much deeper, much greater that is going on. And that is that everything is working together. What does it mean that everything is working together? It means that all the moving parts within us are complementing each other. Okay? They're whole, each knows their role, and each is fulfilling their part. When they don't work together, there may be one part that thinks it's greater than another part of us, and therefore it overshadows the other one. But when we work together, that means that each one is doing their best and each one is contributing to the wholesome good. For example, if you have a group of people and each person is trying to outdo the other person, then they will not be able to get the project done because each one is working against the other person. Now, they're not working against the other person. They would say we're working together with you. But really, we're not working with you. I want you to work with me or like me. But when we put our egos aside, we put our self aside, and we realize each of us has something to contribute to this project, then we will all be working together. When we work together, we're a unified force. When we're a unified force, we're a stronger force. We're a more accomplished force. Who is the ultimate when we say someone that works together and everything in the entire universe is existing and is complementing each other? This is the behavior of the creator of the world. The creator made this world in such a way that everything complements each other and works with each other and supports each other in order for this world to function in the proper manner. If everything in this world would function against each other, then we will have a chaotic world. Now, one can argue we see a chaotic world, and that is where we come to play. Our Hashem, in his perfect world, in his perfect creation, created a systematic, perfect world, or a world. Let me take that back. Hashem, in his infinite wisdom, created a world that can be perfect, but requires our part in bringing together the chaotic aspects of it and making it work together. If we are living a life of disconnection within ourselves, we can't make the world connected. If we are working on ourselves in a way where we're united, then we could also unite the world. So in other words, when we live a happy life, when we are all together, everything is working in unison, which brings us to be happy, which gets us to get off our feet and be joyous and dance and sing, right? With ultimate excitement, then that also impacts the world. So when we work on ourselves and we are happy, and it requires work. In fact, there's a verse that King David says, Ivdu es Hashem Simcha, serve or work with God with joy. We have to work on ourselves to be joyous, to serve God with joy. So when we work on ourselves, we are not just completing ourselves, but we are also completing the entire world. And we are perfecting the world that Hashem made, that God made for us to complete in this creation. So what we're doing is we are taking the many aspects, the many parts, and we're bringing them together in one. And this has an additional effect because it carries us over and above and lifts us up beyond ourselves, beyond us. Each me by myself is very limited. Each and every one of us, while we can accomplish great things, we're still limited. But together, we can do something much greater. But it can only be done with joy and when we're above ourselves, when we're beyond ourselves. This is why it is a fundamental Jewish teaching to dig deep into ourselves and find out who we are. And that will lead us to happiness. What are we? We are a creation from Hashem. God continuously sustains us. He gives us the breath of life every single moment. How can I not be thankful and grateful and happy for this opportunity that I have to be able to live and make an impact and create a positive environment or positive actions around me? So think about it. If this creator saw it's so necessary, it's so valuable that I should be here in this world, and he tasked me to do something about it, not only within myself, but beyond myself, then he certainly knows that I can do it. And he's given me the tools to do it. And when I contemplate on this or think about this, then I actually end off accomplishing it. And I can lead, and it leads me to living a more joyous life. Not a chance life, not a random act life, but a purposeful, intentional life. And that is a happy life. So what is Simcha? What is joy? It is an opportunity for us to break out of our limited state, the things that hold us back, and allow us to break forth and to live a more expansive, meaningful, and impactful life. More so, when we think about it, we realize that it's really not an individual thing. Meaning to say, it's almost, I'm not allowed to be not happy. Because if I'm not happy, it is involving also those around me, the world around me. Even beyond what I see or what people know, what I even can reach, what I think I know. But let's look at the reverse. If I am happy, it doesn't just affect me, it also affects all the aspects within me and all the people in the whole entire world around me. I've laughed. And the Baal Shem Tov said, you did nothing wrong. It's unbelievable that you were laughing and dancing with your wife on Shabbos and so happy, so joyous, that not only were you internally happy, but you actually got up to dance and your whole being was dancing and exciting. Because of this, you were able to impact a decree that was up in heaven. There are two things I see that you need a blessing for. You weren't blessed with children and you weren't blessed with great wealth. I'm going to give you a blessing. The next year, you're going to have a child. And the Baal Shem Tov blesses him with a child, and sure enough, within the year, they had a boy, and they named him Yisrael. He was a famous Kuznetzer Rebbe who came about through the blessing of the holy Baal Shem Tov. Why? Because his parents were joyous. When we are happy, it doesn't just affect us, but it changes the upper worlds that impact everything that we do. When we are happy, it is not an individual thing, but it's a collective thing. When we're happy, we literally change the trajectory of the world, of our community, of our city. When we're happy, it completely reframes and redirects the way we speak, the way we think, the way we walk. So being happy is not an extra thing that we do. It's not even an adornment or a beautiful thing. Being happy is a central, critical part of our life. As Dennis Prager likes to say, being happy is a moral obligation. It shows how much we are grateful for, how much we're thankful for. When we are happy, everything that we touch, we appreciate in a much heightened manner. Which is why our parents always wanted us to be happy. Now, let's not confuse happiness with a false sense of happiness. A person that is drunk seems to be very happy. They're dancing, they're singing. Would anybody argue that that person is happy? I don't think so. That is not true happiness. That is a happiness that is coming about because of a substance that the person used that is numbing them to the world around them, and therefore they are not thinking about the world, and therefore they are expressing this aspect of happiness, which, by the way, is okay if a person is happy. and that is causing them to be happy. But we really need to be truly happy, not because something else, an external thing that we consumed, is causing us to be happy. When a parent wants the kid to be happy, and a child is doing something wrong, doesn't want to go to school, for example. The parent says, you have to go to school. The kid says, well, I'm happy not going to school. If the parent wants the kid to be happy, then one can argue the parent should say, okay, stay home. But a parent never says that, because a parent knows that that's not true happiness. When a child dates the wrong girl or the wrong guy, the kid says, well, I'm happy. The parent needs to put their foot down and bring out what true happiness is, which sometimes is not easy for a parent to do. What a parent loves the most is when a child walks in and has this inner sense of joy, inner sense of contentness, of real happiness that is brought about by appreciating and being thankful and being gracious for the thing that they were given. That is what true happiness is about. When a child wakes up in that manner or comes into that house in that manner, this makes the parent so happy. Wow, I'm thrilled that you have that humility to recognize and to be grateful for the things that you have. When someone feels entitled, for example, they're not happy. They always want more and more. When someone is grateful for what they have, they feel that joy and that happiness, that internal happiness, which is what we're talking about. To be really happy requires one very important ingredient. We've spoken about what happiness is and how it unites everything, but how can we get there? There's one very important ingredient, and that is humility. What does it mean, humility? It means putting aside oneself and recognizing that we are a part of a much bigger picture. It is not all about me. When a person does this, it also leads them to be much more successful because they are leaving room for somebody else. When they leave room for someone else, it allows them to be their best self because they have someone to learn from, to work with, to work together with. It breeds a human interaction, and it leads us to appreciate the things that we have. If I were to ask you, which liquid makes you happier, wine or water? The normal reaction would be wine. Of course, wine is flavorful, it's tasty. We see when someone drinks wine, they're happy, they're joyous, right? However, wine, joy that comes from wine, while it's tasty and it's flavorful and it does make us happy, it is often short-lived. Also, it's external. It is outside, therefore, it doesn't have a lasting impression upon us. It's true that in Jewish tradition, wine plays a major role. One should drink wine because it makes us happy, not too much, of course, in moderation. But we make Kiddush, we make Havdalah, we have a L'chaim once in a while. Yes, it's okay to have wine. But when are we truly happy? When we are thirsty and we cannot even think because we are so parched. What does a person grab? Not a bottle of wine. A person grabs a cup of water. That joy is much deeper than the joy of wine. That joy, while water may be plain, it may be simple, colorless, maybe even flavorless, but it brings a life. It brings us an inherent joy. Why? Because of its simplicity, not because it's complicated and the best winemaker or the wine taster or whatever has made this wine. No, because of its simplicity. That's why it is so joyous, so meaningful, so impactful, and so enriching. There's one holiday during the year that's called a holiday of joy. Well, all the holidays are also called joy, but the joy is manifested itself. That's the holiday of Sukkot. What is the one thing that we do every single day of Sukkot? It is the holiday of the pouring out of the water. Simchas Beis Sheva, the joy that we have by the pouring of the water. Water is that simple thing. When we have that humility, that humbleness, that space for somebody else, that appreciation for things, it makes us so much happier. So how can we be happy? When we leave space to somebody else. How can we be happy? When we're thankful for the little things that we have in our life. There's a story of this house builder who was a skilled craftsman. He built the most beautiful, perfect houses. Very meticulous in his work. He made sure that everything was exact, measured, very careful, very fine craftsmanship. He was involved in every detail and made sure everything was exactly perfect the way it's supposed to be. After building many, many houses over many years, his boss came to him and he came to his boss and he said, I've worked for you for many years. I've had a wonderful life. You've always paid me on time. You've been a great employer. But now I want to retire. So the boss says, do me a favor. Build one more house, please. One more house. He says, my heart's not in it. I'm done. I did it so many houses, so many years. I'm done. The boss says, listen, do me a favor. Build one more house. Okay. So he went and he built one more house, but his heart wasn't in it. He wasn't careful in his craftsmanship. He didn't make sure every detail was exactly the way it was supposed to be. Everything lined up. The roof was a little crookeder than it was supposed to be. The steps were not exactly straight. The walls did not align and connect perfectly. The planks of wood in the floor were a little shaky, a little wobbly. His heart was just not in it. He wasn't happy, excited to do the work every single day as he used to be. He used to whistle when he worked, and he came on time. Now he slacked off, kind of banged a hammer, but he bent some nails. Nothing was right. He finally finished the house. He comes to his boss. He says, okay, I finished the house. Now I want to retire. So his boss says, thank you very much. He takes the keys to the front door and he tells his employee, he said, here are the keys. This is your house for you to keep as a thank you for all the years of your hard work. If he would have known that the house he's building for himself, I assure you he would have built it with all the joy and the oomph and excitement that he built the other houses. Well, we don't realize that the world we're living in is the house that we are building to live in. This is our house. God gave us the keys to our house. And he gave us a roadmap, how we can build it. And by us doing it with joy, we will build a perfect, straight, livable house where the ceilings will not leak, the walls will line up, the floorboards will be strong and amazing. So today, God is telling us, not only are we permitted to be happy, but we must be happy. And when we turn to God in a week and a half, and we ask him to sign us in the book of life, the book of blessing, which Hashem will surely do in the book of good health, and we approach it from a place of happiness, of joy, God, our Father in heaven, will look down and he says, wow, yes, you're deserving of the most incredible life that you can possibly live. and I will sign you in this happiness, in this complete book. And may we indeed have a ksiva v'chasima tova, l'shana tova masuka, may be inscribed and sealed for a good year, a happy and a healthy and a sweet new year.